at the Nairobi County agrees that there is need for a reliable public transport system, but disagrees with those who believe the situation is worsening.
I think saying it's not improving would be a sort of a harsh judgment because people want to get instant coffee solutions, which is not possible when it comes to public transportation. I think what we now need to do as government is to quickly hasten the process of setting up a reliable public transport system. That is what works all over the world. And Nairobi is not any different. For this congestion, for people to actually appreciate the efforts that government is doing, the only way you can achieve that effectively is when you've given people a reliable alternative.
The National Transport and Safety Authority is one of the government bodies that are dealing with the problem.
One of the things that we are doing in conjunction with the Ministry of Transport is to come up with a bus rapid transit system.
A bus rapid transit, commonly known as BRT, is a bus-based mass transit system. Such a system generally has specialized design, services, and infrastructure to improve system quality and remove the typical causes of delay. Is Nairobi now ready to shift gears, discard empty talk, and give commuters a system that works?
It's a consultant who have been engaged by the ministry to do extensive studies, and 5 corridors have been identified in Nairobi that will incorporate this mode of transport, and development of infrastructure is going to suit, or is going to go through the mass rapid transit system.
It's going to be scheduled, so you know if you miss the first bus, the second one will be here in another 10 or 15 minutes. So you can actually predict and plan your journey.
Governance experts say many ideas are on the table, but a new system will only be in place if cartels and personal interests that block change are stopped.
It requires an element of rethinking the city, which is not difficult because where Nairobi is currently sitting, they are sitting on an opportunity in terms of most of the leases which were given in the colonial days. Majority of them are coming to an end. So the expiry of those leases with the new spirit of the Constitution, which is now talking of land use policy, it allows the Nairobi government to rethink the use policy of its land.
One would board a bus in Dandora and you will know that the bus would go cross-city. That cross-city plan was designed to touch particular business nodes or leisure nodes or academic nodes.
So the promise has been made, but commuters may have to wait for about 10 years to reap the benefits of a modern mass bus transport system.
It's a process. I'm saying 10 years because I want to be realistic. Why I'm saying 10 years is, number one, setup of that authority, which comes into fruition in 2016. Number two, you need to build the corridors because these are dedicated bus lanes. So you need to improve the road. You need to purchase these buses. All this will take a bit of time.
Thank you so much for watching KTN Newsbreak. My name is Sharon Momani.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
There's protection these days. When the opportunity comes, you just take it the way it is.
I don't think there's an ideal age. I think everyone gets to make their own decisions. And if you think that you're mature enough, I don't see why not.
With over 10 bullets around Lenana School. This is not a matter that should be treated as an ordinary crime. Jacob Juma has not been devoid of controversies that are not harmful to his image. controversies that have been helpful to the country. He has been a whistleblower and a sharp critic to many wrongdoings in the country. If you follow him on social media, he has been having a running battle with some very senior people in government, including his indications that his life was in danger, and he did not fear or shy away from naming names. We want, as we call for investigations, we want the government to come clean on this, to tell the people of Kenya in general and the people of the Mlembe Nation in particular who murdered or assassinated Jacob Juma.
This is KTN News.
A very good evening to you on this Thursday night. On The Last Word today, we're discussing a social issue, but one that is also important and has effects on leadership, on the economy, and indeed on our society at large. And this is from new statistics from a report by the National AIDS Control Council. Tonight, we can reveal to you here on The Last Word on KTN News that AIDS is the #1 cause of death and disability amongst Kenyans aged between 10 and 24. The report goes on to say that it is unsafe sex that is the fastest growing risk factor for poor health among those who are aged within that age group of 10 to 24. So what is going on? We'll be taking a look at these numbers, we'll be breaking down that report, and we'll also be having the wider conversation about what this means for our society, what's lacking, and just that bigger conversation about where it is our children are headed to. I'm sure that is a question that many would like to know. Please do engage with us on social media. The hashtag is The Last Word. You can use our Twitter handles at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. So let's get the show started in just a minute. But first, listen to this before I introduce you to my guest tonight.
Schoolers are having sex, and I think the reason why they're having sex is because of the internet, because there is no security. People can access pornographic materials easily.
According to me, when the opportunity comes, you just take it the way it is.
So even when you're in high school and the opportunity comes, you still go for it?
Yeah, there's protection these days. Yeah. And actually, it helps you in experience in a later age.
Sauti Sol, the Nishike song, it had a lot of that content, and it had so much controversy.
Wako more afraid of pregnancy kuliko HIV. Juu HIV ni kitu inajihide, then pregnancy ni kitu inaonekana, then alafu mtu anaogopa zile responsibility, anaweza baki kuwa single mom mapema, then kuharibiwa stare zake mapema.
And that is our conversation tonight here on The Last Word. Let me introduce you to my guests tonight. With us, I'll start on my extreme left. We have Margaret Nzau, who's a teacher at Moi Girls Nairobi, been a teacher for over 2 decades now, and is also the CU patron, that's the Christian Union patron at the school and the chaplain. Thank you for being on the show with us. Right next to her, we have Joshua Gitonga, who's the head of monitoring and evaluation at the National AIDS Control Council. Thank you. And right next to me is Joseph Mboko, who's a parent and who runs a youth program, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. Joseph, I'd like to start with you. You've just heard what the youth are saying.
Yeah.
Some of them, and we'll get to the statistics and the figures in a moment, but I'd just like your quick reaction. They're saying, you know, let's do this, it's practice, is this something you're hearing, perhaps in your own household, perhaps with the youth that you mentor?
Yeah, I think there are quite a bit of issues that our youth are raising today. And I think we are seeing more and more differences in terms of the way we reacted in our time and today. And I think there are some concerns that parents have to raise about our teenagers. And I think that's really the topic for today. We need to ask ourselves, are we up to speed with the issues that are being raised? And I think globally, a lot of information has not been dissipated to among the young people and also the parents, which needs to be shared and to tackle the issues that are coming up head on. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, and we'll get into a little bit more of that and the work that you do and in tackling this issue head on. I know the parents really don't know, or if they just pretend not to know. I mean, surely childhood remains the same. Anyway, we'll get into that in just a moment. Joshua, let's start with you then. You know, some of these statistics that continue to come out of the National AIDS Control Council that shock us year after year. So tell us more about this one. AIDS is the #1 cause of death and disability amongst Kenyans between the ages of 10 and 24. This is shocking.
Yeah, it is. And I think what that is telling us is that we need to start talking about this. It's an issue that is in our society, and taking that among all the adults that are living with HIV and AIDS, we are seeing approximately 21%. That means like one among 5 of the adults living with HIV and AIDS, one is an adolescent. Also looking at the new infections among the adolescents, we find that really we are also registering quite high numbers, because we're saying around 29% of all new infections that we have in the country are coming from this age, from the youth. And I think what this one is telling us is that we should be able to break the silence. I mean, we've been quiet for a long time, but I think it's the time that we start speaking and acting.
Okay, speaking
Yes.
and acting. So
Yes.
we'll have some of that information up for you right here on The Last Word on our Super Wall in just a moment. Margaret, you're a teacher, and recently there was a story that we had right here on KTN News about you know, children who were supposed to have been in school, and they rented out a room, and it was 4 boys and 1 girl. And you know, we start to say, of course, ask the question, did the school know where they were? Did the parents know where they were? And we've heard of many of these stories. In fact, there was another one about some young girls in Kisumu who were engaged in, you know, some naked photo shoots. Where is that? I mean, do you get to see this? Because you're right in the center of it. It's the teacher's fault. It's the parents' fault.
I think it was shocking because in the first place, the school, it's like the school did know where the children are. The parents did not know where the children are. So it's a bit tricky. It means that we are not together.
Yeah.
We are not working together. And I think we are missing it somewhere. There's a problem.
Do you see this often? Is this something, because if you recall, even I think it was during the last school holiday of the young children who hired a matatu on their way home from school when schools were closing, and it was drinking and all manner of activity there, then it just starts to create the image of a more reckless one. And many people, even on social media, saying, is it just that the youth today are more reckless, or do we just live in an information age where these stories are being reported a little bit more? What's your feeling about this?
Okay, I feel, okay, yes, information is there, but I think it is a different generation. I think during our time, we were molded by, okay, the teachers, even the neighbor, your neighbor would actually tell you this is wrong and you'll understand.
Right.
But I think we have a new generation. You have actually you have to be careful when you are cautioning somebody else's child. As a teacher, we also have a limit.
Okay.
You know, because we
So you have added limits from what was there before, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We have the child right. You know, during our time, you could be beaten, but we have the child right. Okay, but in school, it is important we talk to them as teachers.
Right.
We cannot shy away from it. We
Do you
have
think,
to talk about it.
that parents have abdicated their responsibilities
Yes,
and allowed,
yes.
you know, it's the teacher's job.
Yes.
I work hard.
Yes.
I pay so much school fees.
Yes.
And I take the children to school. It is your job to fix my child.
Exactly, it is. It's almost like that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll come and talk about the Christian Union in just a moment. But I'd like to talk about some of these numbers now with you, Joshua, in terms of increase in the number of infections amongst young people. And some would say then that even as a government, that we're perhaps not doing enough in terms of, funding reproductive health in the country, and that a lot of that is still dependent on Western donor funds?
Yes, for sure, most of the programs that we have are highly dependent on donor funding, but we've seen a shift, we've seen a change, whereby the government, when you look at the contribution of the government, it has increased over time. But also we've put a number of strategies to see how we can be able to have the government making more contribution towards this. But we remember that the other day, the head of state launched a big campaign that was targeting the youth, that targets to reduce the stigma discrimination among the youth. And the reason for this is that when you look at the youth, take majority are in school, and possibly they are supposed to be on ARVs. At times they don't want their friends to know. And this becomes really a real challenge. Even when they are out of school, they don't want, they are afraid because of the stigma that is there.
Yeah, but doesn't that run not just amongst the young people, but I think that stigma runs across all age groups. I don't think there's anyone who's even in their adulthood who would openly say, I'm taking ARVs. And perhaps the other question then is our hospitals friendly to young people to give them the information they need in terms of reproductive health?
For sure, the kind of personnel that we have, the health care providers, they have been given refresher courses continuously to be able to meet the need of the youth. But I would say that actually, as we look at the youth, a lot needs to be done in terms of putting up strategies that are working. And across, not only at the health facility, I'm looking at the school, like we have the teacher. I mean, I'm looking at the community. What are we doing? Because when you look at, if we have to succeed when dealing with children, we have the parents, because they are with them at home. We have the school, and the teachers, and actually the community. I think it cuts across all these people who come into contact with the youth. Yes.
Tell me, can a young person under the age of 18 go into a VCT center or into a health center and request an HIV test without consent to their parents?
For sure, when it comes to children who are below the age of 16, the issue of the consent and assent is needed, whereby the parents or the guardian need also to assent to this.
Could that be a barrier, Joshua? Should we then allow them to just go in and get themselves tested and,
yes,
privately?
Yes. But kindly, what I know is that this has changed. This is changing slowly, and the guidelines now are being looked into so to see how we can be able to have them access it easily. But basically, we are saying that at least for children, we know the issues that come with that, and I think possibly that's something that needs to be looked into.
Okay. Do you think, Joseph, that we need to start being a little bit more liberal? I think you talked about sometimes parents don't know or don't understand what is going on. What sort of conversations should we start having with our children at home, at school, and by what age?
I think as parents, we are concerned about at what point do our children actually get to make some moral judgment. As long as moral judgment is required, then it means that one of the key things that needs to be done is to begin to inculcate the ability of children to make certain decisions in their life. And I think that where we may have missed it as parents is that while urbanization is catching up with us and we get very busy as parents, but in the meantime, the child is also growing. And because the child is growing, they come to a stage where they need to continue to own how they make their decision.
Right. And by what age do you think parents should start doing that? Because sometimes you assume or you say, there are some things that shouldn't happen until you're 18 and I don't want to have certain conversations. What age do you think? Because now we're taking a look at, unsafe sex in children between the ages of 10. It goes all the way up into adulthood at 24. So should we start talking to them at age 8, at age 9, and start, in one way or another, starting to tell them this is how you make certain decisions? Or should we just say abstain?
Well, I think we must start right from the onset. If the parent and the child have not been talking right from the beginning, and then you come up somewhere at age 16 or 18 and you want to carry a conversation, you find that the length of that conversation continued to decrease.
That's true.
So the only way to increase that window is to begin to interact with the child right from the beginning.
And what are these things you're telling them? You know, maybe for parents, I think this is a difficult conversation for parents. How do I begin? How do I broach the subject? What words do I use? We watch a lot of TV where, you know, those in the West say the birds and the bees. Some are not even aware of that analogy of the birds versus the bees. So tell us, maybe if you've had this conversation, I'd like to put you on the spot for just a moment. Have you had these conversations with your children, and at what age did you begin?
Yes, I've had this conversation, and actually as a parent, I'm quite advantaged because I do mentorship for boys, starting right from age number 9.
Okay.
And the kind of conversation that we have is both combined with what you'd call experiential learning, together with...
Oh, well, that sounds interesting now. Sorry, but carry on. Experiential learning seems very interesting in this context.
And picking that together, in fact, with speaking about some of the social issues.
Okay,
because
just for interest's sake, what does that conversation sound like? With a boy aged 9, when you start to give them, you know, these tips, what does that sound like? I think, you know, there's many parents who say, how do I begin? So assume for a moment I'm a 9-year-old boy and you're starting to have this conversation with me. What would you tell me?
I think at age number 9, mostly you begin by the way the child socializes with other children. Because at that time, the child is looking for linking with other kids.
Okay.
And as a parent, one of the things you want to do is to make that possibility a reality. Meaning that your child, therefore, will have a chance to meet with other kids, and you'll be able to ask your kid what you have seen about the other children and how they behave. I think that becomes very, very critical.
Okay.
And also how they feel about themselves, how they feel about the experience they had when they went out. And I think issues begin to emerge. And they will say about those other children, this is how they behaved, this is what they did. And that's what I actually mean by experiential. Because you want them to speak to you. You want them to tell you about what they have observed. But the notion of telling the child really sometimes get defeated quite a bit. Because then they can kind of feel that the parent plays the role of always telling the child.
It comes across as instruction.
As if the child doesn't
resist.
they resist that.
Okay. As if the child doesn't have a mind of his own.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. You know, so Margaret, so how does this conversation start in schools? I know religious organizations and schools have been very averse to this phrase called sex education.
Yes.
And the assumption for many is sex education is teaching about sex. But is that really what it's about? I'm sure it encompasses much more than just the 3-letter dreaded word.
Like in high school, we have the Christian Union, and we have other religious organizations. Actually, we discourage, and we talk about it as a way of keeping yourself pure, abstaining. So it is not like it is something you must do. It is there's no option that you should keep out of sex until marriage. Because as we talk now, reading the Word of God, teaching the Word of God, what it says. That
but some say, Margaret, that is part of the problem. When you don't give children options and you say this is it, it's either this way or the highway, and yet they're surrounded by all of this information on the internet. People have phones now, WhatsApp, there's things like sexting, and they're sending all manner of things. But then when they come to school and to the CU, they're told, no sex until you're married or no sex until you're 18. And then they're thinking, but there are all of these options. Some would say an alternative is to say, you know, I'm not advocating anything, but, you know, these are the options. If you go down this road, these are the consequences. If you go down this road, these are the consequences, and allow them to make the decisions and own them.
Exactly. It's a way of also guiding and counseling them that, okay, first we lead them according to the Word of God, but there is a place for counseling, whereby we are telling them, following that route is the wrong route, you are still young. And personally, I talk to them, even in Form 1, and we reason together that you begin sex at this time. For how long? Why can't you wait until the right time? And we discuss. We have a rapport, we discuss. But we have to bring in the word of God also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me put it to you this way. A lot of people know what happens during those CU meetings. And those, I hope I'm not sounding too old. They call them funkies, eh?
Yes.
Where they go, this girls' school goes to the boys'
Boys'
school.
school.
They have a care show. It's one of those Christian functions. And a lot of things that shouldn't be happening within the Christian Union actually do happen there. And some would say
Yes.
then, Margaret, your message is not hitting home. They are not listening, or they nod their heads when you're there saying yes. And then after that, quite a bit
Yes.
happens in those Christian unions.
Yes.
In fact, I know some parents will say, Christian Union, apana, that's a front for something else.
It is tricky. But we still have a remnant. We still have those children who listen and they buy the idea.
But are you trying to then adapt to what these young people are seeing? Because they're speaking one thing, but they live in the real world. And they're bombarded by images of sex
Exactly.
everywhere.
And we understand. We
Yeah.
understand actually they are bombarded by so much. We have the media, we have the peer pressure, we have the issues at home. We understand. But we'll still help them. We cannot let them alone because it's the way to live. We have to speak to them and work with them. Yes, they come and confide in us, but we work with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, it's so hard for them to leave it. It's so hard. They are like, why can't I have a boyfriend?
Yeah.
But it is upon myself to guide that child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll get into some of those issues. I just want to read this tweet from Peter Santoni because I feel I need to clarify. It says, seriously, Yvonne, you should have at least invited a youth to your show. Tutaelewaje. So, just to let you know, we have a young person who's coming on the show in just a moment. In fact, she's quite seriously related to one of our panelists here, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. So she is coming in just a few minutes, so hold your horses. We have everybody represented on the show tonight. Keep your feedback and comments coming in. Joshua, from where do you sit? Young people are dying of AIDS in the country. Where do we begin to tackle this problem, and who is to blame? Most people would like to know.
I think the beginning is one. We have the parent who is in touch with this child, whom the child trusts. And if we can be able to build on that trust, but we have seen the challenge that is there. I can imagine as a parent, you don't know whether now you are dealing with an adult or a child.
Yeah.
You have this baby that you've been bringing up over time, and the baby now seems to be going out of one's hand. And this now brings the predicament so that parents possibly feel as though by talking to them about sex, then it means that they are possibly making them sexually active.
Right.
But I want to give you some figures around this. One among youth aged 15 to 24 at least had the sexual debut before age 15.
There you go.
So I think one of the things is even though we may say that possibly they are not sexually active, they are.
I'd like Margaret to respond. I'd like Margaret to respond to that because she's dealing with a lot of these young people. So you're telling them that, you know, only engage in sex when you're married. But listen to the numbers that Joshua is giving us here. The sexual debut is coming at the age of 15, some of them even 9, 10, 11, 12.
It is true.
So clearly, perhaps your message needs to be tailored towards practicality and the real world that exists. How does your message then, you know, juxtapose against what's really happening in life?
Yeah, it is a bit tricky because we are not talking to people who are naive.
Yeah.
We are talking to people who already know. They know.
And they know a lot.
They know a lot. Yeah, so it becomes a bit tricky. And that's why we need to talk to them as parents. In fact, teachers, we are supposed to speak to those children as parents, trying to caution them. And as I was saying, to just show them that there's a place for sex. That engaging it, we need to show them the dangers of also involving themselves in sex so early, because the dangers are there, leave alone HIV and AIDS. There's a lot of danger. So it's just, and also I think also befriending them so that they are not going to look at me just as a teacher, they'll look at me as a friend. And as I talk to them, they can see, understand them. I try to look like I understand them. Otherwise, if I come as a teacher, don't do this and this and this, they'll just say, this is just a teacher, she doesn't understand
But
us.
you know, they're able to go around those dangers though, aren't they? You know, Joseph?
Yeah.
They know about the morning after. They know how
Yes,
to get around
exactly.
all of these things. So
I
should
think-
we honestly be giving them options rather than saying this is good, this is bad, but just saying, I mean, is it time we just threw out that rule book
Well,
and change the messaging?
yeah, I think the whole challenge that we face sometimes and oftentimes as parents is actually the question which you are raising as to how we communicate or converse with our teenagers. And I see that the need for our youth or teenagers actually changes over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we need to take cognizance of that so
Yes.
that it is not a message that is being given as a one-time message. It is the question, are we able to travel along the need of the child?
Right.
And I think as parents sometimes we may think that all the child needs when they begin is provision, is to give them security, is to give them food. But as they begin to grow, their needs actually change. And I think at teenage, in my view, this is the time they face the identity crisis.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the time they're asking exactly who am I?
Yeah.
And they start having conceptions about who they are and what they can do, what they cannot do. And I think the parents come in quite handy to actually help that young person to get hold or rather be comfortable with who they are.
Yeah.
They need to be comfortable with that. So if the parent doesn't help there for the teenage to become comfortable, then it means that the peer pressure will just
Will take
become
over. Yeah.
overwhelming.
Yeah, and it becomes truth for
Yes.
them
Yes.
in their life. Margaret, then, so what's the way forward then? How do we
think
start to
we
make sure our
need
messaging is relevant?
It should be a joint effort
Yeah.
with the parents. We
Yeah.
need to work together because on our own as teachers we cannot manage. Parents alone cannot manage, but to some extent I think the parents have left a lot to the teachers. We need to work together.
Yeah.
Also, to talk to the children together. And most schools, I think teachers also, we need to take the responsibility of talking to these children as we teach them.
Yeah, and sorry.
Yeah. Would you like to add something, Joshua? Yeah, carry on.
Yes. As far as the exposure to HIV is concerned,
Yeah.
what I think is that we need to have a more holistic approach, whereby it is not kind of a blame game. Because this child is coming in contact with the teacher, and therefore in school we need to care for them. We
Yes.
need to be able to give them messages. We need to empower them so that they can be able to prevent.
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? Because them that are abstaining, I think it is going to abstain. We
Yes.
encourage abstinence.
Yes.
But as we have seen, that is not the case with some.
Yeah.
We need to empower them. How do we empower them so that they protect themselves?
Thank you. Margaret, empowering, is that a message that you are at all going to introduce within the Christian Union?
I don't think so. I don't think so because here we are talking about purity. We are talking about, we keep on telling them they are the table of the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So we don't have a place for an excuse.
And some would say that is the problem right there.
Yes.
You have no place for any other conversation.
Yes.
Do you see that as a problem?
I see it as a problem, yes.
That you don't have room for any other options in your conversations
I
with
am
them?
seeing
So you
it's
see
a
it as a
problem.
problem. So what are you going to do about it? Is it then going to be different, or will you just see it as a
Abstinence.
problem but carry
Abstinence.
on with what you know?
Abstinence.
Okay. So you
Yes.
don't see it as a problem.
I
but
know
you
it is
don't
a
have
problem.
An alternative for them in terms of giving them the options to keep themselves safe. No.
No. That one will be difficult because as a Christian leader, as I lead them, I lead them with the Word of God.
All right. Remove
Yes.
yourself from the patron of CU for just a moment.
Yes. Now as a parent.
And yes, and let's say for those that are not in the Christian Union, do you think those options should be available to students saying, look, you know what, abstaining is really the best option for you? I mean, you know, that's really
Yes.
the way to go. I mean, you know,
Yes.
you've got your schoolwork and your books. However, should you find yourself in a situation, these are the options you have. Make sure it's safe sex, you use a condom. Is that something that you would consider outside of CU? You can say within CU, this is what we do because we guide using, you know, religious doctrine and the Bible. But outside of that, is that a conversation to be had?
It will not come out of me because
Yeah.
of also
But are you okay with it coming up from somebody else who's not in CU, for example?
Not a teacher, of course. Somebody else outside school.
Okay, but Margaret, it seems clearly the method that you're using is not working.
Okay.
Look at these statistics.
It is there,
you
I know.
can stick to what you have done and what you have always done.
Yes.
But you're getting different results.
Okay.
It's not working.
Not always.
To some extent. I'm not saying it's a total failure.
Yes.
Because these numbers don't say, all the youth, 100% of them. But, once you have infections moving from adults, married couples, and coming on to young people, don't you think then there's a need for a radical change in how we start to tackle this problem? Or shall we just say, okay, that's happening out there, but let's just continue banging our heads against the wall and expecting a different result?
Okay, we are talking. We are not burying our heads in the sand. We are talking and we are telling them it is not right.
Okay.
We are talking to them and we keep advising and we will not get tired of talking.
Okay.
Yes.
But I just thought to ask Yvonne, is really the question one of speaking the message of abstinence, or is it a question of to what extent are our children prepared to make that decision?
Exactly. And that is the empowering message that you give to them.
Yeah.
But when it comes out that this is wrong for you, this is bad, you're making decisions for young people who are more and more precocious, who are seeing a lot more and able to make the decision. It almost sounds like for them, in your mind, Margaret, there's no decision. Yeah. The decision is the instruction I have given you, and that is it. Yet, they go out there behind your back and still make their own decisions, which are contrary.
It's not that we just tell them, you must not do it. We talk. Actually, we talk, we discuss these issues. And I don't know what happens because we agree.
And that right there is the problem. Even you don't know what happens despite the messaging.
And actually...
And that is a problem, no, Margaret?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And to look at it, over the years, we've seen some increase in the number of youth who are living with HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
When we look at the new infections, as we are registering reduction in other age categories, we are seeing a situation whereby among the youth, it starts to go up.
Right.
Yes.
So what numbers, what would it take, and I'd ask to both, because I believe you're both parents, besides being teachers and mentors as well. What numbers would this have to get to start to say, let's change our approach? For example, you are headed to Mombasa, and you suddenly realize that you've not passed Mtito, you've not passed Voi. So it's very obvious you will not get to Mombasa.
Yes.
But at what point does these numbers, what other numbers need to come out of the National AIDS Control Council for parents to say, no, this is a crisis, and whatever we've been doing, the way we've been doing it, the way we've been speaking to them, Joseph, is not working. What's that number going to be for a change to happen?
I think one of the good things I can say is that the National Council is able to give at least some figures, because it's very important to work with data.
Yes. Absolutely.
And in the past, we have not had this kind of data, which means they'll continue to speak to us.
Yeah.
But based on what we have been given today, I think we are already doing, so to speak, so badly.
Okay.
Because that can only grow much faster. If we are where we are at today, when you go forward another 2, 3, 4 years, I think the figures are likely to go worse.
Okay.
So it is not possible to wait for things to go to 100% before, in fact, we can start to have this conversation about how we can help and work with our youth.
Okay.
And my view is we actually need to work with our youth. The decision as to how they go around their life, it's their decision. I think that I feel as a parent, it is a question of, have I been present enough to give what I would say my very best?
Okay.
If something did go wrong, then I'll not come back and feel remorseful, pitiful. No, I'll try again to cope with it.
Okay. All right. Interesting. We will put your theories to the test in just a moment, because we'll have a young person. I'd like to give you just about 30 seconds to conclude, because we'll ask you to leave, Margaret, as we have a young person that many people on Twitter are saying they want to see the face of youth on this panel. So just 30 seconds to conclude before we let you go.
Yes, it is a big issue. It is a problem. And we need a lot of we need a lot of wisdom as we deal with it, even in school as teachers, as you have said, to empower the youth. And to empower the youth, we have several things we can tell. Actually, as Mr. Bugu has said, they have a choice to make. Ours is to give them the guidance which they require, and to show them the disadvantages and actually the choices they make. It will affect them in life.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Margaret Nzao is a teacher at Moi Girls and also the patron of the Christian Union at the school. She's also a chaplain. Thank you for joining us. She will be leaving us in just a moment, and we're about to put Joseph Mbugwa's theories to the test. So his daughter, Joy Mwangi, will be joining us in just a moment. We'd like to have the face of youth and sex as we discuss youth and sex. You're watching The Last Word. We'll be right back after this break.
This is KTN News.
On Transformers, we will endeavor to bring you events that will define the economic trends for Kenya.
I am happy to note that the industry now readily embraces IT.
The introduction of direct flights will significantly boost trade.
Not only that, we give you in-depth analysis of what to expect from mega projects and what this means for Kenya and the greater East Africa economy at large.
We are doing well, but more is yet to be done.
Increase compliance to what is already existing.
The sector contributes about 10 billion shillings to the country's economy, a crop that defined Kenya's economic history in the early 90s.
Mine is unmatched content on issues that matter to you in unmatched style. Now in London, that yellow box means a lot. Behavior and congestion in the city, out of the ordinary. Morning, habari. Namna gani? Tuelekea town sasa. Exclusive.
Je m'appelle Alex. Je m'appelle Kofi.
Je suis journaliste, mais je parle un peu de français seulement. To the point.
Let us look at the personality of the person, not the tribe, because that is what is in our country.
Told through first-hand experience. I'm called Alex Chamada, and you? Yes. There he goes in his car. He's just stopped to say hi to me. From every corner of the world. Hello, I'm Alex Chamada in Paris. President Uhuru Kenyatta visited some of the greenhouses here in Israel. And that's changing the guard. Right from here at the Buckingham Palace, told through state-of-the-art presentation. I visited Norway recently, where they are advanced in recycling.
This biogas is used on our buses in this region.
With you in mind. Join me for the Chamada Report every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. only on KTN News.
This is KTN News.
Watching The Last Word here on KTN News. So let's take a look at what you are saying on social media. Mike Mash says, parents have lost the way in the moral upbringing. You also say the media itself promotes this youth sex instead of advising on abstinence. It's about prevention, surely. Let me see if I can get another one before I take you to our Super Bowl for that one. Oh, Peter Santoni, here you are again. A youth is now on the panel, a young person, so don't worry, we'll be getting into that in just a moment. So let's take a look at some of those numbers on our Super Bowl tonight. And these are just some of the figures that we're getting from statistics in the year 2014. And it's about those who are living with HIV and AIDS. And as you can see, The number is highest between those aged 20 to 24, but still a big number amongst those who are aged 10 to 14, 71,402. And amongst those who are 15 to 19, it's about 69,000. If you put together those numbers, aged from 10 to 19, that is quite a significant number. So I want to take a look at some of those others. Now, the deaths resulting from HIV and AIDS, as you can see, the total number in the year 2014 alone, 9,720. That is indeed a big number. So these are the figures and statistics that we are facing today in Kenya. So where do we go from here? So then let's start by talking to one of those persons who may or may not be in that age group. You know, women are a bit cagey about their age. I'm particularly not, but Joy Mwangi maybe. Thanks for joining us on the panel. You've heard a lot about what is being said here today. Are parents outdated? Do teachers get it? You know, you've heard from the CU teacher just now, Margaret Nzao, saying, you know, this is what we preach and we say abstinence. What are you seeing amongst, I'm tempted to not say children your age, because you're not quite there yet, you're above that. What are you seeing amongst your age mates?
Well, I tend to agree with you because we feel that parents and teachers are a bit removed. Of course, when I say that, I don't say that meaning myself, I mean the young people.
It's good to set that clear, right?
Yes.
Because we know who's with us here, present company.
Well, when I come back to high school, I remember we were talked about abstinence. It's all that we're being sung for. Abstinence, abstinence, abstinence. When we went to campus, it was the same song. But no one clearly was out there to talk about the reality, you know? So we have emotions, we have feelings. Where do we take that? Who do we talk to? And you see, if your parent is also removed, then what do? You go to peer pressure, and peer pressure in the society will teach you the wrong thing. Then what happens? That's how we end up with so many people, teenage, then indulging into sex because they have, it's like their sweet pleasure, you know?
Okay. You've also heard what the young people were talking about when we aired this just a little earlier. Do young people know a lot more than we give them credit for?
Yes.
Like by the time you're having that conversation, are you looking at your parent or teacher and you're saying, like, really, you know, been there, done that, gotten the T-shirt?
Yes. Actually, you find that your parents and teachers are afraid to tell you what it is that you already know. And sometimes you want to put them on the spot.
How much do you know?
Quite a lot. You know, quite a lot than they think I know. And it's because there's media, there's online, there's information brought forth to you. You know, all sorts of things that you learned when you Google. Google is your friend and your teacher and your companion, you know. If you want to learn how to make a meal, you Google.
Yeah.
If you want to learn about some symptoms that you have, you Google. If you want to learn, you know, everything is Google, Google, Google. So your teachers and your parents tend to kind of shy away in saying some things that for you probably you already know.
So your father is here with us. When did he have that conversation with you? He's waxed lyrical quite a bit before you got here, not empowering and allowing you to make that decision. So when did you guys have that conversation?
I think I should have been about 14 and 15, and I can actually remember that conversation. It was so weird.
How did it go?
So my father called my sister and I, and he told us, you know what, guys, I know that you've started your menstrual cycle. And we went like, are we in the same house? and he goes like, you guys need to learn that there are things that I need to teach you as a father, and if I don't, then no one else will. So he actually taught us how to use a condom, and he said, this is a male condom, and this is a female condom. This is how you use a male condom, and he had a bottle, and this is how you insert a female condom. And for me, for the couple of next days, I went like, okay.
Yeah, was that awkward?
You know, it was, really, it was.
Yeah.
But now, I really do thank my dad for that, you know, because I stand and I teach other people, you know, what it is that he taught me.
All right.
So he wasn't lying when he said that. He's a straightforward person. He'll tell you A for A and B for B. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've been vindicated.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I would say that in terms of being a parent, I do feel that I was not adequately prepared as a parent in terms of bringing up our children.
True.
And I wish that this could actually happen, that we as parents don't stop to gain understanding in terms of how to parent. I think this is normally taken for granted.
Yeah.
You assume that once you have a baby,
Yeah.
that yes, you will automatically,
naturally.
it all comes naturally. But I think it is not the case. I think parents, we need to interact a bit some more. We need to find forums where we can have parenthood topics brought up.
Yeah, let me ask you. So you're having this very candid conversation with Joy. Are you worried at any point while you were having this conversation that you were in effect teaching her, how to go out there and be careless? Did that thought cross your mind? Because that's what everybody says. If you show them how to use a condom, if you say, well, there is sex and you can choose, make your choices and these are the consequences. Did you worry at all that when you were telling your daughters that they would then go out and say, good, now I know how it's done. So, where's the next man going to come from? Did that cross your mind at all?
I think I was advantaged because already I was working with a youth group and we would do some HIV and AIDS training with the support of the council.
Okay.
And because of that, already I was, so to speak, above that. But my major concern was, do I disadvantage my children by not speaking to them candidly about the issues out there in the market?
Right.
And I kind of said it is better for them to be, for being forewarned is actually better than just bumping into situations that you are not aware about.
Okay. Many have blamed the media, Joshua.
Yes.
And you'll hear this all the time. There's a lot of sexual connotation and images that are thrown out there. And we get that fair end of the stick. So what are your thoughts with that? And what are your thoughts as to what you've just heard here that has, obviously you must have heard it before.
Yes. Number one, I think I want to congratulate Mr. Mwangi here because I believe he's one of those courageous parents who have come out and talked to their children.
Right.
And this is what we are encouraging. Now, as we were told, she has already attested that if the parents, if the teachers do not speak, youth have teachers. That is the Google. They'll go to Google and get information. The kind of information they get, nobody knows. They are the only ones who know.
Yeah.
My take would be that, yes, we need to partner with everybody. I would not look at the media as though that whatever that is coming from the media is negative. I believe if we can be able to partner with the media, we can be able to reach out to the youth.
Yeah.
And that will be one way. The second way is, yes, I think to an extent, when we have anything, it needs to have control.
Okay.
Therefore, I think once we exercise the control, and at the same time partner with the media, I think we can be able to reach to the youth. Whether it is the mass media or even the other means that they have they access this information. One of the things is that to take advantage of that and utilize it to give them the correct information that will be able to empower them.
All right, let's focus on these numbers for just a moment because some will say, but those are things that happen in urban areas. That's in Nairobi. Even with a number of the stories that you've seen we cover, it's Kisumu, it's, peri-urban areas. And some say, but this doesn't happen in the villages. Hiyo ni mambo ya watu wa Nairobi, Kisumu, that's where youth ni machachari kabisa. So are these numbers, widespread? Could you talk to us about, the distribution across the country? Is this something you're seeing everywhere, or is it just in specific areas?
One, the number that we are seeing is really a total for the whole country. That means that every part of the country is contributing to those numbers. Yes, we may have possibly some differences when it comes to urban versus the rural, but the truth is, whether you are in urban or rural, we find these numbers being distributed there. So my take is that with the penetration of things like internet, even to the rural areas, I think we are seeing also that shift towards the same. So mine, I would say that whether in rural or urban, I think something needs to be done if we have to reduce the number of new infections.
Okay.
Yes.
What, according to the council, is the way forward? What are some of those strategies that you intend to put in place? that you think parents should put in place, teachers, young people?
Thank you for that question. Whereas at the council, we have been able to come up with a document that has been able to define a number of strategies that need to be used in addition to what has been there. One way would be to empower the youth, first of all, to know their status. That becomes the beginning. When a young person knows their status, them that are positive, we are able to link them to care and treatment, and therefore they can be able to lead a comfortable and long life. For those ones who are not positive, then we are able now to tell them how they can be able to change their behavior so that they continue living negative. Another approach is the health facility. The health facility deals with treatment and also the prevention commodities.
Yeah.
We have schools approach whereby the curriculum for schools has been revised so that as they are being taken through, they can be able to be taught about sexual education, and actually HIV is also being taught.
Yes, define sexual education. Most people panic when they hear that. And like I was asking the teacher also a little earlier, it isn't all that we think it is. I mean, is it about guidance on how to do that? Just talk to us about what reproductive health and sexual education means.
The truth is, when it comes to reproductive health and sexual education, is empowering the youth to understand themselves. Of course, they are growing. They are seeing the many changes that are taking place. I mean, this is part of reproductive health. So I think by not telling them does not mean they will not notice. By not talking to them does not mean they will not go to the internet to find out.
Right.
So my take is, when we talk of sex education, when we talk of reproductive health, it means we help the youth to understand themselves, the changes that are taking place, and then what can they be able to do
About
at that
those
point
changes.
about those changes,
All right.
and
Joy,
how to handle the change.
Okay. Joy, so the KFCB, said certain ads that promote sex or even use of condoms should not be aired during prime time and should go, past the watershed period, which is 10 p.m. As a young person, and a lot of people have been so outspoken about this on social media, saying that, Ezekiel Mutua perhaps is misguided or misplaced. To what extent do ads like these influence young people? Do you agree with him?
Well, to some extent I do, because again, you're also looking at a wide scope of ages. If you look at about 20 and above, such advertisements don't actually affect you because you're per se fully grown mentally, so you're able to understand what is good and what is bad. But for the younger generation, for about 14, the teenagers, then these things actually do prompt them,
Right.
So you saw a sex ad or a condom ad, and it enticed you, and you want to try it out. And that's why when we were younger, when you'd go to school, you either found a guy who carried a condom and you wanted to fill it with water. I mean, it was something really ridiculous. But again, it affects different ages. So I do agree that during prime time, they should refrain from that.
Yeah.
But the truth is that even children from primary, when they go home, the content that we're airing is still not good for them, So then are we shooting ourselves in the leg and trying to hide under a truth that is not there? Yeah.
I think, I think that this is quite an interesting debate because one of the things as parents we may have maybe not failed to a great extent is that while we thought, of course, of the media, like say primetime news, we have maybe forgotten that the smartphone that the kids have in their rooms, in fact, has, I think, worse content. So when we talk about media, I think we need to look at it from a point of the media can be the same channel through which you can be able to pass positive messages for our teenagers. The issue now, and I think I like what Joy is saying, is a question of what timings do you have on that.
But Joy, you're talking about timings and prime time, and to be fair, children your age don't really care about prime time. They have their own prime time, which is all the time.
Yes.
On Twitter and on Facebook and on WhatsApp.
Yes.
So to a great extent, even if you were to be able to curtail it on mainstream media, but take a look at what happens on Facebook.
Yeah, and
social
I
media.
do agree with that.
So what happens there?
Yeah.
Who's going to police what happens on the internet?
Now that's a question because, and I'd give an example. I have a younger brother who's in high school and he has a smartphone.
Yeah.
Now he stays up till about 2 a.m. and there's Wi-Fi.
Right.
God knows what he's watching or what he's getting his content from. So we cannot per se say that we're going to refrain them from getting information because if they don't have their phone, they'll use their friends.
So what's the solution then? Because they're getting that information anywhere and everywhere.
Well, that's a very...
I think one of the key issues, Yvonne, and I keep contesting on this, is while the kid will get the information that they have, it's like, are they filter enough for the information they are receiving? So I think as parents, we need to be more present in their life by doing what? Associating not only with them, but even their own friends. So meaning that you are able to let their friends come to your home, let your child
know who they are,
even know who they are. By this kind of interaction, you are able to know the kind of values that these particular children are building up.
Okay.
And I think that for me would be a strong
and to give them the truth where they have a point of reference. So that no matter what else they see elsewhere, they're like, but this is what I know to be my truth. Your final comments, because it seems like we've come to the end of the show already, Joshua.
Okay, thank you. As far as what is being accessed by the youth is concerned, one, we talk of age-appropriate messages. Messages that will go out targeting everybody may not be appropriate for some age. I think at that point something needs to be done.
Right.
But what I would say is, number one, we need to empower the youth to be able to make decisions that will help them prevent HIV and AIDS. Number two, we should encourage them to go for testing, and those who become positive, there is hope because we have health facilities, we have everything that is needed to ensure that they lead a productive kind of life. But finally, what I would say is that there is need for all the stakeholders, from media to schools, to the parents, to the community, to work together to be able to protect the youth. We need. The figures that we are getting shows us that, Lily, there is a problem, and we need to take action now.
Okay. Joy?
Well, I'd say that the key thing that both teachers, parents, society, organizations need to do is listen, because the young people are suffering because their parents and the teachers are not listening. And part of listening is letting them be and correcting them. As Dad said, starting from my younger age. For I don't, most things for me sound normal to me who's such a young person because I knew of them when I was younger. But if I wasn't informed, then I'd be in that pool where I'm trying to figure myself out. So if you listen to your children and be open with them, because they know what it is that is out there, the best that you can do is actually conform with it and tell them more about it. Then you save some of these situations that are called embarrassing.
Your final words.
Thank you for having us. I think I would say that in terms of the youth, the stakeholders are the parents, together with the government. And I think we need to see the effort the government is also making to the kind of figures that we have seen here this evening. And I feel that one key area has been the education of the population in terms of how to parent. To be very honest, I think I could still have done much better if I had been coached. Before, we used to have our grandparents. They speak to us, they guide us. But today, it's not the case. So we need to build into either school system or through the Attorney General's chamber, a mechanism in which once you want to make a family, then there is a way in which you can begin to understand the issues that our children will go through. And I think that's the only way we can have a healthy nation in the coming years.
All right. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming on the show tonight and for discussing these very pertinent issues with some of those numbers that are worrying. Joy Mwangi, Joshua Gitonga and Joseph Mbugwa for discussing this issue we have been talking about tonight, youth and sex, right here on The Last Word. I'll let you have the last word. Jacob Kennedy War on Twitter says, Christian Union's mandate is to teach Christian values, which include abstinence and not safe sex. Mike Mash once again says, let's be clear, media doesn't mean only the TV viewing. All we can do is to pray for the generation. That is the last word from you, our viewers tonight. Thanks for watching. I've been your host, Yvonne Okwara Matole. Remember, Sophia Wanuna will be back right here where she belongs, and she'll take over once again next week. Thank you for your company throughout the time here on The Last Word. Have a good night.
This is KTN News.
Welcome to today's edition of KTN Newsbreak. My name is Sharon Momanyi. Mothers are very important people in our lives, and spending as much time with them as possible is vital. But can you imagine spending those precious moments with your mother within the confines of a prison? Well, Lucy Wanjiku not only shares a special bond with her mother, but also the same cell at Kenya's largest women's prison. The two women spoke to Timothy Otieno.
So I'm standing outside the gate of the Langata Women's Prison, where I'm about to meet 81-year-old Esther Wanjeri, who has been incarcerated in this institution for nearly 2 decades, a time which she has used to reflect upon her life in the efforts towards rehabilitation. But she has been incarcerated alongside someone very close to her heart. We find Esther Njeri, who prefers to be called Wanjeri, inside her cell watching her favorite show on KTN. She continues unperturbed by our presence until the warden informs her of a visit. She then quickly gets her glasses out, but not for us. And soon enough, we see why. Aside from the KTN crew, Esther Wanjeri has another visitor who finds her reading her favorite book, the Bible. 37-year-old Lucy sits close to the lady many here refer to as the woman of wisdom. You see, Lucy and Esther do not only share the same faith, they share the same blood. One mother, the other child. I interrupt their session to talk to the 81-year-old who has been locked up since 1998. She tells me a quarrel with her husband turned tragic after she hit him with a stool and he passed away. But she has since gotten salvation.
Tangu niokoke sijai kukosana na jera, sijai kukosana na madam, sijai kukosana na mtu wowote.
Esther was sentenced to death for murder in the late 1990s, a ruling that was turned into a life sentence in 2009 through a parliamentary process by then President Mwai Kibaki, who abolished the death penalty.
Kama ninaona makosa inatendeka hapa, sitakuwa karibu na hapa. Sitakuwa karibu na hapa. Na ikiona hata matendo inatendeka bali, sitakuwa karibu.
Her daughter Lucy Wanjiku was also arrested with the same charge.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
Masomo ni ufunguo wa maisha. Sekta zote za uchumi zategemea elimu. Kuanzia chekechea hadi elimu ya juu, Kenya imejitahidi japo vizingiti havikosekani.
Students don't set exams, they don't distribute exams.
Migomo ya walimu imekuwa jambo la kawaida nchini. Wizi wa mitihani nao umegeuzwa desturi miongoni mwa watahiniwa na walimu.
We are cancelling the results of 5,101 candidates.
Mfumo wa elimu ya 844 unafanyiwa mabadiliko.
The 844 system is not the problem. The problem is the content.
Na viongozi wa kesho wanatarajiwa kutoka kwenye mchakato huo wa elimu. elimu imeingiwa doa.
Whose chairman is he?
Tatizo liko wapi?
Democracy must be respected. Let those leaders come, we work together.
Lugha ya Kiswahili inapuuzwa au haipuuzwi?
Sasa sijajua kama Kiswahili kina kabla mara mbili.
Si lazima uende shule ndio ujue hiyo lugha.
Kama ninaharibu siwezi kujua.
Yote haya ni mambo na vijimambo kwenye sekta ya elimu.
Who is the chair lady of Teacher Service Commission?
Kama watakuwa hawajalipa hiyo pesa, walimu hawatafungua shule.
Ni idadi ambayo inatisha sana, na hivyo basi baraza la mitihani nchini sasa kurunzi yetu inaimulika kila Jumamosi saa 10:30 jioni kwenye kipindi cha Dau la Elimu.
This is KTN News.
Good evening and welcome to News Sources, the home of